men have dropped the role of paying dowries, and even when we find issues in family matters, you find that women end up criticizing the men that you didn't even pay dowry for me. So this has brought about issues in families and even ending up to a divorce, or rather broken marriages.
They suggested that there should be a cost-sharing bride price with the wife. Yani the husband and the wife, the man and the woman should cost-share the bride price. Although, according to the findings we got, 65% of the individuals supported the idea of cost-sharing, while 35% opposed.
Yes, sir. Thank you. My name is Frida Mongare, a researcher from Molecular Insights, and today we have gathered here to have a brief presentation of what we've been doing around research. And here we go, a bit of introduction and the background. In many Kenyan communities, the bride price tradition is an important requirement and aspect of marriage to show appreciation and respect to the family of the bride. The groom and his family pay the bride's family money, gifts, and livestock as a final seal of marriage. Cultural heritage forms the basis, and the tradition is regarded as an act of respect, family togetherness, and somewhat... I try to angalia. Good. Okay.
Just read lakini
Okay.
Ile point you understand continue.
Okay, I can begin.
Yeah, just continue.
I pick it from where I left. Cultural heritage forms the basis, and the tradition is regarded as an act of respect, family togetherness, and somewhat a compensation to the family's bride. In many instances, the bride price ceremony is an elaborate affair with pomp and glory, but how relevant is the tradition today? And what do Kenyans think of the underlying reasons? This study looks at the opinions of Kenyan males and adults aged 18 to 45 about the bride price tradition. The research aims to determine if men still see it as a vital tradition, or if they think it is an old-fashioned and problematic, and whether it commodifies women or commercializes them, commercializes their marriage in any way. The study highlights the clash between tradition and modernity, economic impacts, and the shifting attitudes of such traditions among different groups of men. Participation in this study was voluntary, and all respondents provided informed consent before participating. Participants were informed of the study's purpose, procedures, and the potential data uses. They were assured that they could withdraw from the study without any consequences. Molecular Insight is committed to protecting the privacy and confidentiality of all respondents. No personal identifiable information was collected during this survey. Focus groups or interviews. Data is aggregated and anonymized to ensure individual responses cannot be traced back to the participants. All findings are reported in a manner that upholds the principles, integrity, transparency, and respect for our respondents. Data will be stored securely and used solely for research purposes, which aligns with ethical standards for social research. I'll quickly take us to the objective that we were looking at while we were carrying out this research. And the general objective was to assess the attitudes, perceptions, and experiences of Kenyan men aged 18 to 45 regarding the bride price tradition, with a view to understanding its cultural significance, socioeconomic impact, and evolving relevance in contemporary Kenyan society. That was our general objective, but we also had, we can narrow down to the specific objective that we were looking at. The first objective was to determine the level of support for the bride price tradition among men aged 18 to 45 in Kenya, and to identify variations in attitudes toward bride price among men based on the age group, location, level of education, and marriage status. We also we wanted to explore men's perception of bride price as either a valuable cultural practice or an outdated custom. We were looking at, another objective was to examine how economic factors such as affordability and financial pressure influence men's attitude towards bride price. We also assessed the influence of religion and cultural beliefs on men's support for or opposition to the bride price tradition, to investigate how men's views on bride price relate to perspectives on gender equality, fairness, and women's autonomy. We also wanted to explore men's preferences for alternative practices in place of traditional bride price. And we looked to inform policy, public discourse, and cultural engagements, efforts on the future of bride price in Kenya. I'll quickly delve into the poll questions that we put up for the research. And the poll aimed to answer the following key questions, one of them being that to what extent do men support or oppose bride price payment in Kenya? And how do men's attitudes toward bride price vary based on their age, the location, that is either urban or rural, and we also the level of education or rather marital status. Do men view bride price as a valuable cultural tradition or as an outdated custom that no longer fits modern society? Another question was, in what ways do economic factors such as affordability and financial pressure affect men's attitudes and decisions regarding bride price? To what extent do cultural beliefs influence men's support for or opposition to the bride price tradition? The fifth question being that, how do men perceive the relationship between bride price and issues of gender equality, fairness, and women's autonomy in marriage? The sixth question was, how does the expectation to pay bride price impact men's decisions about whether or when to get married? What alternatives practices do traditional bride price do men prefer, if there is any, that is? And what kinds of emotional or social pressures do men experience in relation to fulfilling the bride price expectations? Lastly, a poll question that we put up was, what do men believe should be the future of bride price tradition in Kenya? Should it continue? Should it be reformed, replaced, or generally abolished? While carrying out the research, we used these particular methodologies in order to collect our data. And the sampling and data collection, that was we used a national qualitative survey. The population was Kenyan male adults aged 18 to 45 age bracket. The coverage was nationwide, and the data analysis, total level, key demographic setting was gender and the age brackets. The fieldwork period was done from May 13th to June 27th in the year 2025. The sample size that we used was 15,823 respondents. The margin of error was plus or minus 3.4% at a 95% confidence level. And the data collection was 50% CATI and 50% focus groups. The sampling was multi-stage stratified sampling, which is proportionate to the target of the population that we were looking at. And the funding was solely self-sponsored, no partnership or anything, it was solely self-sponsored. Thank you so much. And men have dropped the role of paying dowry, and it has become a discussion among young people. For those that are paying the dowry, according to the research, we found out that there are men that are appreciative of the role that the parents have played in raising their lady, and now that they are taking them away from them, they feel the urge to pay back a token of appreciation. And also, some men are really glued to the culture because it is an African culture, and there are that responded by saying, we cannot run away from our roots by not paying them. So it's part of tradition, and others are still in the viewing it from a sense of appreciation. They are picking a flower from a family that has been well kept and taken care of. So it's sort of, if I'm taking it away, then I have to pay something in return.
But you do research in urban areas and rural areas. Which areas do you find that people are willing to pay payments?
Well, according to the findings that have been presented by my colleague here, it's clear that location also matters. Urban area, it's a 50-50 point of discussion. And in the rural areas, we found that a percentage that beats 70 to 30. Then it shows that, of course, we carried the research nationwide. And this means that we visited mashinani and also in the urban areas. And clearly, we have found out that urban areas, the modernity has really taken charge, and people are talking about the 50-50 percentage. But in the rural areas, 70-30. And that 70 to mean that 70% are still in support that bride price is a necessity and a priority when two people are coming together. But the 30% feels like, well, it's not really necessary. So urban areas are in support of the 50-50, but in rural areas, the regions that we did our research, they showed that 70% at least is in support of a bride price is a necessity.
Did you maybe bother to check maybe which tribe is really paying this dowry in Kenya, because you really researched the whole country? Which tribe is really active in paying dowry?
Okay.
And maybe why?
And maybe why? Well, according to the questions that I presented to you before in my introduction, there was no bit where we were talking about which communities, because this is an issue that is universal, doesn't really narrow down to a particular community, and so we did not take that direction of narrowing down to which community is paying or not even paying. So it is a universal agreement, or not specifically tribal, or rather which race, which community. Yeah, so we didn't take that direction. So it has been realized over time that men have dropped the role of paying dowries, and even when we find issues in family matters, you find that women end up criticizing the men that you didn't even pay dowry for me. So this has brought about issues in families and even ending up to a divorce, or rather broken marriages. Yeah, so we thought it wise to want to find out what could be the cause, where are we headed, and why are these issues arising amongst us in society. So that's why we took the step to want to find out.
Maybe does divorce play a role for this for men not paying this dowry, from your findings, from your research?
Okay, according to the findings, we found out that it is just modernity and also the change in times that people, men and women, in urban areas, we realized that 50% men and 50%, it was a 50-50 point of discussion. 50% of women agree that, a dowry payment is not really necessary, and 50% men still agree that it is or it is not necessary. So you realize in such a situation where we are talking about 50-50, then to mean that people are not even looking at the divorce, but rather it's just the change in times and modernity. That is according to what we found out, the age groups and modernity.
What does poverty play? Which role does poverty play in this role of paying dowry?
Well, we also figured that some women, not even some women, but according to the women that we had discussed with during the research, they are, it's a sort of consideration. They consider the people that they are in a relationship with and their social status. And for that reason, it's just a matter of agreement between the two parties that are coming together. So it's a point of consideration. From a point of consideration, that's when they assume he's not in a position to pay the dowry, or rather, is he in a position? So they end up agreeing on what percentage can they give and what that can they not give at that time.
So we're going to the finding. Number one, level of support for the tradition. To what extent do male adults aged between 18 to 45 still support the bride price tradition in Kenya? And how is this support distributed across different social groups? According to the finding, 53% still support the tradition and 47% oppose. Number two, cultural perception and relevance. Do male Kenya's adults today view bride price as timeless cultural tradition or a practice that no longer fits within modern values and relationships? 59% agree, while 41% disagree. Economic concerns. Do economic realities shape men's opinions about bride price tradition? 54% agreed, while 46% disagreed. Religious and cultural influences. Do religious teachings and cultural norms play a role in shaping men's support or opposition to the bride price tradition? 66% said yes, while 34% said no. Bride price and women's autonomy. Does the customary Does the customary bride price tradition commodify women? 65% said yes, while 28% opposed, 7% were not sure. Impact of bride price to decision to marry. Impact of bride price on decision to marry. Is a man's decision to marry influenced by the requirement of bride price? We sampled two categories of men, married and the unmarried. Married men, 32% agreed that the impact of bride price on decision was a key determinant for their decision to marry, while unmarried men, 58% agreed, while 42% disagreed. Number 7, pressures associated with the bride price. How does the expectation to pay bride price affect men's emotional well-being and social identity? Impact on emotional well-being, 58% said they were affected, while 42% said they weren't affected. On the impact on social identity, 23% agreed with the research, while 77% disagreed. Support for alternatives. Support for alternatives. What alternative practices to bride price are Kenyan male adults willing to accept, and how do these options reflect changing societal attitudes? Number 1 of the alternatives included cost-sharing bride price with a wife. 65% support the idea of cost sharing of the bride price, while 35% are opposed. Gradual payment of the bride price payment, meaning that they need to be allocated time to pay the bride price. 83% of males support the idea of gradual payment, while 17% are opposed. And finally, bride price is a reward scheme for good behavior for women. 89% support the idea that bride price should be as a reward for good behavior, while 11% are opposed. Other proposals included abolishment of bride price tradition. On these, 48% support this very idea that the abolishment of bride price should happen, while 52% are opposed to it. And finally, women paying bride price instead of men. 29% support the idea that women should pay the bride price, while 71% are opposed. Thank you. So while conducting the research, we asked the very pertinent question about alternatives for the bride price payment, and we asked in 3 categories. Number 1, they suggested that there should be a cost-sharing bride price with the wife. Yani the husband and the wife, the man and the woman, should cost-share the bride price. Although, according to the findings we got, 65% of the individuals supported the idea of cost-sharing, while 35% opposed. Gradual payment of the bride price payment, 83% supported, while 17% opposed, meaning that the 83% said that the bride price should be paid through a period of time as the couple continues to live together. And finally, bride price is a reward scheme for good behavior. On this, a majority of men say that they should be given an opportunity to at least live with a woman and get to find where their character matches what they want. And if their character matches what they want, then they should pay the bride price in terms of their behavior and what they found during the marriage. Finally, other proposals included abolishment of bride price traditions. 48% say that this thing should be done away with. 48% say that bride price is something of the past, and 52% oppose the idea of abolishment of the bride price tradition. And finally, just like some other countries in the Western world where women pay bride price, a majority of men in Kenya oppose the idea that women should pay the bride price, while 29% of men say that we also need to be taken care of by women paying the bride price.
Thank you. Hapo story. There we go.